Hello, my friends. What happened when the werewolf swallowed a clock? He got ticks. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. He stands in front of me and looks at me with the hunger that I have known for a way too long. The thirst that doesn't ever seem to be quenched even after long nights of hunting. He is newly changed and doesn't realize that this life is now mine. He just wants to feed. Let me introduce myself. I am Kylan. I was human once, many years ago. Now I am what your world might call a werewolf, although there really is no such thing, not in the sense that you may have read about or what your older siblings tried to scare you with when the moon was full. I don't have to wait for a full moon to change. I can change at will. This has allowed me to survive for so many long lonely years. You must be thinking, how can I be lonely? But unfortunately, the hunger causes a lot of my kind to be imprisoned or murdered way before their years. I found that some just cannot control the thirst. Another fallacy of the legend of the werewolf is the silver bullet. It will kill us, but so would a regular one. It seems that the change that we go through is more of an infection than anything else. I do appear as a human most of the time, but I am also a beast that feeds on flesh, and blood. Yes, blood. I can go without meat for weeks, as long as I have fresh blood. See, vampires are another legend that my kind may have brought about. I do not have to become the beast to drink blood. I have learned how to control the thirst, control the desire. It is mainly through necessity or for survival, but my kind can maintain on human blood and not transform for weeks if the need arises. Thus, seeing something that looks like a man drain another man of blood, you can see how it would be considered a vampire. Back to this newly turned subject of mine. He is eager to eat, to feed, to consume, and I shall allow him his pleasures, for I will then enjoy. See, it is an addiction, this desire to feed, and it is almost impossible to control when you first become infected. It never subsides, always burns. But again, my desire for survival is stronger than my desire to feed. For now, let me describe to you the feelings of the feeding. It is like sexual bliss combined with a high that doesn't immediately crash. Lots pure intoxication. Not chemical, so it is nothing like a drug high. It is pure and erotic. I become so aroused when I feed that I usually pleasure myself with whomever I am with at the time, man or woman. It no longer matters. It's about satisfying the hunger. That is all that is important when you get to that point. Sexual preference goes out the window. With each experience, I gain knowledge of the person I feed on. Maybe not knowledge, but memories and experiences. I drain the life force with the blood. I'll take all I can get from my victims, so as not to waste a life. If I'll decide to leave them alive, as my kind, then I can feel their strengths, their weakness, their fears, and that are how I control them in the beginning, to become my subjects. I enjoy sex when I am not feeding, but it's not as intense. It's just normal. Once you fuck while in your frenzy of feeding, nothing compares. That is the hard part of the control. I can control my thirst, but when I combined it with the lust for flesh, well, I am just about powerless to it. Actually went to a meeting for addicts to try and learn to control the hunger. But that didn't last long because they say control is not what they are looking for, and control is the only thing that has kept me alive. For the 500-something years I'm walking on Earth, I have been able to see a lot and experience a lot. I fell in love once, but during sex, I took it too far and infected her. And when she became depressed and listless over the years, Elle had to end her life because she was no longer who I fell in love with. I was in love with her life force, her essence, and when she lost that, I saw that I wasn't looking for a companion, I was looking for an equal. And to find someone equal to me is going to be a difficult task. I am not full of myself or conceited. I am just a strong-willed, strong-minded individual. I live my life float and keep a job that allows me the freedom to move about and money to live on. You may be asking yourself, how do I live amongst people without raising suspicion? Because one of the legends of vampires, werewolves, is the fact that we don't age. That is true. When infected, whatever age we are infected at is the age we remain. Looking anyway. Let me get back to my new subject. He is a young man, about 25 when I infected him. He is strong and weak-minded, so control over him will be easy. I will be able to use him to do my hunting without fear of being found out. I will use him until he either is no longer controllable or until I find another that I enjoy controlling more so. I understand if that angers you. I am trying to explain myself to humans, and most humans have compassion and empathy towards other humans. I did have those emotions once. They even stuck around after I was infected, but for my survival, they couldn't stay around. I had to lose them and lose them fast. I mean, think about it. If I cared about who I was eating, would I eat? I cannot be vegan and survive. I never did understand the whole vegan thing anyway. Besides my species, humans are at the top of the food chain. Why stop eating meat? I do understand when animals are abused. That's not cool. I digress. No, my new subject is not being abused. He will be well fed, sexually pleased in so many ways, and when I grow bored of him I will be humane and I won't waste a single bite. I am telling you all of this because I am lonely, and I am seeking a prodigy. Someone to challenge me and share my crazy life. I guess someone to keep me on my toes and maybe fall in love with or just rule the nights with. I want you to know that we will hunt together, but we will also have subjects of our own to share or to keep for ourselves, to hunt for us or to just use as we see fit. Another falsehood. I can be out in the daytime. It is when I live my normal life, make my money, I do transform into a beast. Whenever I want. I don't have to change except whenever I need to consume human flesh. It is easier to eat human flesh as a beast than as a man. Just saying. But when I drink blood, which I do more often, I do not have to totally transform. Just my teeth need to change so that I may make a bite to get to the bloodstream. If I give my blood back to you, then you will be infected with the virus I carry. I was changed when I was 33, back in 1518 in Scotland. I was a part of the House of Stuarts. My family worked for them for many years. I was sent out one night and I met my fate that night and disappeared, never to be heard from again. I then travelled through Scotland, England, and France with my master for a few hundred years, being his slave and his wife's lover until I was to be put down, as my master called it. But his wife had fallen in love with me and she set me free with a few gold pieces and a ticket upon a ship to the New World of America, and I have been here since the beginning of her independence. So I will be looking for someone to make my partner, someone to keep me company, and not just be my subject. I am once again tired of being alone and just having to hunger, the sexual desire. I can have that with any subject I choose. I want an equal, someone to hunt with me. So if you feel like you're being watched, and something is stalking you, it may just be me, and be happy. That means I think you are worthy enough to be my equal. Hello, my friends. These tricks cannot stop me. My magic is much stronger. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. The moon shone into the diner. 2 days past full, I spotted its reflection in the pie cooler's glass door. Spinning my stool so I faced the plate glass window, I saw it hanging above my bearded reflection like a brilliant idea or a second bald head. Wired from my 4th cup of coffee, I tilted my head back and quietly howled. Carrie elbowed me. Knock it off, hairball. People's trying to eat. Hey, you got more hair than I do. Down the counter. Sophia frowned. You shouldn't, though, Jacob. It's not respectful. That surprised me. Respectful to who? To the people who were killed. Say what? Carrie said. What people? Oh, yeah, Rob agreed. The other side of Sophia. For a few years, Drunken 3 had a bigger murder rate than Argenta. Argenta's 8 or 10 times the size of Drunken 3 village. And here's a university besides. See, Sophia said, there was a werewolf here. Carrie laughed. Arun. By now Sophia's frown tightened half her throat. I'm serious. Shut up and listen. Okay. Sorry. There were a bunch of people in here one night, and a guy comes in. He orders 3 hamburgers and sits down. But people hear him growling, and all of a sudden he sprouts hair and claws and shit. What was he taking? I asked, rubbing my smooth scalp. I could use some of it. If I'd hit any hair, Sophia's glare would have shriveled it. You all think this is a joke. It's not. People died. People die every day. Sophie, Carrie said. Just tell your story. Wait, was it a full moon? That's what I heard. Well, first he clawed up the cook because his burgers took too long. Then everybody started trying to run out the door, and they got all jammed up, and the werewolf ripped off a guy's head, and the rest of the people broke the doors out. He chased them into the street, and killed a girl there. Wow, Carrie said, subdued. I didn't know. 2 people died, and the cook was crippled, and some other people got sort of trampled, and the werewolf ran off and nobody ever figured out who he was. Carrie picked up a French fry, looked at the ketchup, laid it down again. That's messed up. I had to agree. I'd researched that night for years and never heard a more garbled version. Rob also agreed. It turned out, geez, Sophia, you got nearly everything wrong. I started to worry the frown would freeze on her face. What do you know about it? She asked. More than you. I was here. I heard a snort by the cash register. Sure you were. The counterman, Aldo by his name tag, had gotten interested. Half the university was here that night if you believe everyone. He stepped closer. No offense, kid, but if 1/10 the people that say they were here really were, this place would have looked like the biggest phone booth stuffing stunt in history. Rob shrugged. I was, though. So were you, and that black cook, Jerome. You used to wear a red apron. Hey, yeah? I did. That thing saved my balls that night. Jerome dropped his flipper, crawling under the counter, and I slipped on the grease and hit the fryer. Splashed hot grease all over my front. I shucked that apron fast to Gypsy Rose Lee. If it hadn't been so thick, I'd have probably fried my man bits. He looked at Rob more closely. Where were you? Rob pointed down the counter's length. I'm the one who broke out that window. He leaned forward, elbows on the counter. You see. Sophia cut him off, gaping at Aldo. You saw that night, and you still work here? Why shouldn't I? I gotta work somewhere. Well, but, what if he came back? Aldo chuckled. What? You think he misses our burnt sugar pie? Her voice low and throaty. Carrie said, that's why I come here. We all laughed. Seriously, though, no reason he should come back here. It's probably just an accident he was here at all, just passing through. But the memories. How can you? Sophia looked at us, baffled. They should have closed this place, she said, a little loudly, or put up a plaque or something. Oh, God, Rob said. I bet you leave flowers at roadside crosses. He struck home with that. Tears flashing, Sophia said, my cousin was killed on Highway 207. My sister and I put up a cross for her. So, it's not enough your cousin's death. You gotta make total strangers feel bad. People die. Sophie, you gotta grieve and go on. It's not fair to try and make the whole world grieve. She pulled a 20 out of her purse and shoved it blindly at Carrie. I gotta go. She ran out the door, tears in her eyes. That was pretty shitty, Carrie said. Rob looked abashed. Yeah, well, I really hate those crosses. Come on, Jacob, back me up. I shook my head. I don't like those crosses. I'm not big on grief, but Carrie's right. That was shitty. I didn't mind, though. Sophia had nothing useful for me. Aldo had already cleared away Sophia's dishes and laid her check by Carrie's plate. No rush, he said. I said, so what happened that night? Carrie looked at me and shrugged. Okay, yeah, what happened? Watching for Carrie to object, Rob slid onto Sophia's stool. I was here with a girl. I can't even remember her name anymore. We were sitting over there. He pointed at a short row of two-person booths. I didn't see the guy coming. He was alone at the counter and just starts growling and snarling. And he grows these giant claws, like a bear. He stands up, and all of a sudden he's like 7 feet tall. People are screaming and running for the door. Aldo nodded. Rob went on, a big guy, biker type, tries to get the guy in a headlock. The guy just reaches behind him and rips the biker guy's belly open, like it was paper. Now, when the bear guy first stood up, he broke his stool right off the floor. Aldo interrupted. The inspector made Cliff replace all the stools after that. Said they weren't sturdy enough. Well, I'm lucky that one broke. It fell right by our booth. The bear guy and the biker were fighting, and everybody else was pushing at the front door, and I just grabbed that stool and heaved it through the side window. My date and I jumped out and ran like hell, and a bunch of people came after us. That's where the other girl was killed. She tried to jump out the window and fell on broken glass. Cut her belly open. I winced. Rob sipped his coffee. Freaky thing is, the bear guy didn't hurt anybody until the biker jumped him. He could have claimed self-defense. Ain't that how it went, Aldo? The counterman said, be right back, and went to ring up a family. Staring at Rob, Carrie reached blindly for her soda. I took her hand and guided it. She faced me, pale and quiet, eyes wide. I shrugged. I wasn't here. That really happened? She turned back. Rob, you really saw that? Yeah. Never been so shit scared in my life. Except for the Orkney tornado. The guy was a complete freak. Didn't grow hair, though, just got huge and grew claws. That's right, no hair. Aldo was back. I'm gonna tell Darla she ought to rename this place Rashomon. I knew what he meant, but the others looked blank. Say what? Carrie said. Rashomon? The Kurosawa movie? What's Kurosawa? Rob asked. Some kind of anime? He's a movie director. Jeez, you kids don't watch anything wasn't made this millennium. I didn't bother telling him I preferred Kurosawa's Stray Dog. Anyway, Rashomon's about 4 people telling the same story, only they all see it different and tell it differently. Carrie got the hint. So what's your version? He ticked a finger at Rob. You didn't get so much wrong as that little girl you ran off, but you didn't get it all right, either. He came in, kinda shaggy haired but nothing freaky, with a girl, same as you. They sat at the counter. I got them both burgers, and they started eating, and by I notice he's looking upset. She's looking really serious, and I think, uh-oh, she's giving him the Dear John. Next thing I know, he's out and out crying, not out loud, but just running tears, and kinda hiccuping, you know. I think she's gonna walk out now, but instead, she puts her arms around him, and his face is just like a dam's breaking inside. He lets go this one big sob, and then his face he stopped, at a loss. His face just grows, except that's not really it. There's more behind his face, and then he stands up. I heard the stool break. Didn't know what it was, watching him. He was bigger and taller, you're right there, he must have been over 7 foot. And he's got claws. No fangs, though, not like people said. Just the same teeth. And no new hair. Carrie grinned. Sorry, Jacob. Jerome's diving under the sink. That's when I slipped and hit the fryer. The time I got my apron off, He'd already killed the one guy and the place is nuts. I saw a guy throw the stool through the glass. That was you? That guy had black hair, all dressed in black. Rob ran a hand over his sandy hair. I was doing a goth thing then. He even had black nail polish. Dad saw me in black lipstick one day. I thought he'd had a heart attack. Well, you threw the stool, and I threw my apron over the guy's head and ducked under the counter with Jerome. We didn't stand up until we heard sirens. A couple of years earlier, there'd been a shotgun under the counter, but Cliff's wife made him take it out. We stand up, and the place is empty except for 2 dead people. The one guy, I guess he did look kinda like a biker, but he worked at the hardware store. The girl, I never knew who she was. Jerome wanted to slide out the back. I made him stay and back me up. Like you'd think, the cops had a million questions. I just told them what I saw, and made Jerome do the same. They thought it was nuts, but 4 or 5 other people had come back after the cops showed up, and told the same story, more or less. He poured coffee down the counter, refilled my cup, and told Rob, "There's another thing where you're wrong. He didn't have bear claws. They were more like a cat. I saw him sheathe them." The girl he'd been sitting with, he pushed her away, before the hardware guy jumped him. Then them claws popped back out after he pushed her out of reach. He tried to protect her, but she was the girl got killed in the window. Aldo looked at me. "Well, Rasherman's got 4 stories. What's yours?" "I wasn't there," I said. "I've heard about it, made it kind of a hobby, but never heard so much detail. I never looked for you. I heard you'd quit. Guess somebody mixed up you and Jerome." "Yeah, Jerome did quit, moved to Memphis, and Cliff sold the place to Darla a year later. But I'm still here." After that, there didn't seem to be any more to say. Carrie's appetite, even for burnt sugar pie, was gone. She paid her check and Sophia's, left a generous tip, out of her change, not Sophia's, and told us good night. I sat, sipping coffee, while Rob finished his onion rings. When we left, I noticed Rob left only around a 10% tip, about what I expected. We walked out together, around the corner to the gravel lot. In the cool air, the moon bright above us, I said, "Rosemary and Ginger." "What?" "Rosemary and Ginger. The girl you were with, and the girl who was killed." "An herb and a spice, kind of a coincidence." He looked blank, then thoughtful. "Could have been Rosemary. We never went out but that once. Met at a party, split up at a massacre." He frowned, reminding me comically of Sophia. "How do you know?" "I met her about a year after that night. She didn't remember your name either. She never noticed you dyed your hair." "I've been looking for a black-haired guy all this time." I looked up Carrie cause I heard Sophia knew something. "I never expected to luck onto you." "What? You've been collecting everybody's story? You some sort of researcher? Debunker?" He scoffed. "You got a blog?" "No. Just trying to find out what happened to Ginger." I leaned against Rob's dodge. "She was my best friend in high school. Like a kid sister. We'd have probably got married, but turned out we were both gay." Rob stiffened and pulled away. "Oh, relax, numbnuts. I'm not gonna rape you in the parking lot." "Geez, the whole world revolves around you, doesn't it?" He managed to look a little shamefaced. "So she went to college and I went to work, and I didn't see her for a couple of years, just talked on the phone every week or 2. I could sense Rob's impatience. What's this got to do with me? Then something really bad happened to me, and I needed to talk about it. I called her, and we made a date to meet here. I showed up late. You said you weren't here." The first trace of fear was in his voice. "I can tell lies, too. I saw the 2 hit him. I'm going bald anyway, but I shaved my head and grew a beard when I started researching, in case anybody remembered me here. In your case, it's wasted effort. You're too self-centered, self-important to remember me." "Was it you?" He looked up at the moon. 2 days past full. I never hurt you, man. Ginger and I were at the counter. I told her I'd lost a month of my life. I still don't know what happened. One day it was the middle of June and I'm at home, the next it's nearly the end of July, and all I remember in between is something like a long restless night with a lot of weird dreams. My phone's gone, and I'm miles from home in torn up clothes. And there was something else wrong, something I couldn't talk to anybody about, so I called Ginger, and we're here at the counter. And I start crying cause it hurts so much to talk about. And that triggers the change. He swallowed. Not the moon. Nope. Grief. Nobody loves me. Dog ran away. Mum just died. Heartache. I shrugged. As I said before, I'm not big on grief. I'm more the bottle everything up sort, long as I can remember. But Ginger put her arms around me, and boom. I could hardly hear him. He'd grown so breathless. Why are you telling me this? Rosemary told a different version of the story. For one thing, you ran off and left her for the monster to eat. And she couldn't remember your name, so she never said anything to the cops about how Ginger died. But when I found her, she told me. She saw me change and saw you throw the stool. She saw me push Ginger back out of harm's way. And she saw you grab Ginger and push her across the window frame, across the broken glass, so you could use her as a stepping stone to get out. He was trembling from head to foot. I smelled where he'd soiled his pants. Okay, Ginger, I thought. I can be sad now. I thought about my friend, about how much we'd shared. I thought about her embracing me that last night, and felt tears begin to sting. God, Ginger, I cried out. I missed you so much. Sometimes, it's necessary to let the grief out. Hello, my friends. What do you do if a werewolf eats your Halloween candy? Eat an apple instead. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. My husband of 6 years, Troy, was diagnosed with hypertrichosis during the last leg of our marriage. If that particular disorder doesn't ring a bell, you may recognize it by its more colloquially friendly name of werewolf syndrome. Due to the furry, lupine appearance it can give the afflicted. It's pretty rare, and it took us completely by surprise, given that no one in Troy's family ever had it. It turns out it can be acquired without a genetic predisposition. At first, it was a little funny. Thick dark brown hair, distinct from Troy's normal dirty blonde hair and scraggly gingerish beard, began to sprout as luxurious mutton chops by his ears and along his cheekbones. He let it go for a bit, then shaved it all off once the Wolverine jokes got old. We didn't worry too much about it. It was strange, sure, but we figured it would be manageable. The hair grew back quickly though, and the same dark, downy fuzz began to grow elsewhere on Troy's body, his shoulders, back, stomach, and perhaps most disturbingly, his palms and the soles of his feet. Once that began, the hair only seemed to grow faster, like overnight fast. After I woke up with some of his foot hair twisted around my ankle, I took Troy to see a doctor. It was the first time I'd seen Dr. Brighton, our family doctor of several years, appear to be shocked by anything. He did his best not to show it, which is exactly how I knew he was so disturbed. Dr. Brighton was usually warm and gregarious, and as soon as he saw Troy I watched his face go carefully blank. You rarely see hypertrichosis to this extent, he said as we consulted in his small, sterile office. It's quite unmanageable. He's growing hair back overnight, I answered, giving Troy a sideways glance. He was twirling a long lock of hair from his forearm with his index finger. I tried to keep from shuddering. We've resorted to trimming it all as quickly as possible before bed. It's not really helping. I see, Dr. Brighton said, jotting a note down on a clipboard. Well, There are options, such as electrolysis or laser hair removal. My concern is the extent to which you would need such therapies. They can be expensive, and sometimes painful, even for areas of minor concentration. He glanced at Troy, but his eyes didn't seem to want to linger long. He began writing again. "It's not that bad, honestly," Troy chimed in. "A little itchy at times, and yeah, I've gotten a lot of funny looks. Other than that, I don't know. I think I could live with it." "Well, that's the spirit," Dr. Brighton replied, though his eyes twitched to me briefly before they went back to Troy. "Just keep it all clean and dry, and I'm sure you'll be alright. If you ever want to seek out permanent treatment, I can give you some recommendations." "Thanks, Doc," Troy said, hopping off the examination table. "We'll let you know." A week later, Troy's body was absolutely covered in hair. It had to be a 1 in a zillion occurrence. Not even the most egregious case I could find pictures of on Google could compare. Troy wasn't all that shy about his appearance either and insisted on accompanying me on even the most mundane of outings. News about his condition spread almost as quickly as their hair. There was an article in the local paper that dubbed him the city's own real-life Sasquatch, and after that, he was a minor celebrity. People stopped to ask for photos and requests for his best Wookiee impression. I found this all very hard to cope with. I loved my husband more than anything, but it was becoming too much. Being near him was like being around a perpetually damp, odorous dog. All that hair made him sweat, and by the end of the day, he smelled like the communal towel of a sauna frequented exclusively by 400-pound men. Needless to say, the one accommodation I asked him to make was to sleep separately from me. There was nothing less restful than lying next to the human equivalent of a yak. Troy had to stop working as things spiraled out of control. He spent most of his days sleeping on the couch and watching TV. Content in his cocoon of hair. Meanwhile, I took on a second job to keep up with the mortgage and living expenses, including the increased cost of shears, shampoo, and other supplies. I would be exhausted and at the end of my rope after 2 shifts, all while hacking at a jungle of increasingly tangled and unruly hair. One night while I was especially tired, I was trimming a wild mat on Troy's thigh, humming to keep myself awake. I had just snipped off a clump when I felt something creeping around my wrist. I screeched and yanked back when I noticed a twist of hair encircling my wrist and snaking up my forearm. "Ow, what the hell, Carrie?" Troy demanded. "Why are you pulling?" I wedged the trimming scissors under the hair and snipped it away. I watched as it receded like a wounded snake. Stunned, I took a step back. "I'm totally losing my mind, Troy. I need to sleep. It's going to be even worse tomorrow if you don't finish," he warned. I stared at my hirsute husband. "Troy, I don't think I can do this. I'm at my wit's end." "Carrie, don't say that. I need you. In sickness and in health, remember? Let's talk about it tomorrow." I sighed with a shake of my head. "Sorry, I'm just so tired." Troy was quiet for a moment as I swept the trimmings. "Can I sleep in bed with you?" he asked. "I don't know. It's so hot with all the hair." "Please, Carrie, it might be the last time." His words tugged my heartstrings, and the desperate look in his eyes did the rest. My throat felt dry and strained at the thought of lying next to him, but I nodded anyway. I was too tired to argue. I helped Troy up the stairs and to our bedroom. I got under the covers, while he laid on top, having his own natural blanket of sorts. He drifted off quickly with gentle snores, and I turned away, curling up to be as far away from him as possible. With a thought of the retreating, worm-like hairs and a final disturbing shiver, I too fell asleep. I had wretched dreams of a deep, dark jungle with slithering, living vines that ensnared me. They dragged me into a fetid swamp where an alligator lay in wait to snap and crunch off each of my limbs. one by one. Just as the monster was about to go for my head, I gasped myself awake. I thought the nightmare itself had awoken me, but it wasn't that. It was the pain from the loss of circulation in my arms and legs. I pulled and flailed, my limbs meeting resistance, and was finally able to thrust the covers down to my midsection. I saw with horror that my arms had been bound tightly with thick ropes of Troy's hair. With no way to free myself, I began to panic. "Troy," I hissed, beating down the desire to scream. "Wake up! You have to help me." Troy stirred without opening his eyes. "What's wrong?" he mumbled. "Your hair is tangled all over me. I need you to get it off." "Oh, sorry about that," he responded. I felt the hair restraining me begin to shift and release, falling away from my body, harmless as ribbons. "Oh my God," I gasped, scrambling out of bed and backing away. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." "What?" Troy asked, more annoyed than alarmed. He'd finally opened his eyes, and that's when I began to scream. Thready patches of hair had sprouted from the whites of his eyes. They wriggled and floated like tentacles while he looked at me. When he blinked, the hairs seemed to curl and retract under his eyelids. "That's it," I shrieked, dressing frantically. "I have to leave. I can't take it anymore." "Carrie, don't. We can figure it out. I'll see Dr. Brighton again. I'll start treatment. I promise." "Troy, I don't think you have hypertrichosis. Whatever you have, it's much worse." "I'm sorry." I grabbed an overnight bag from our closet and began shoving everything I could find into it. "I have to go." I started for the bedroom door, but thick tendrils of hair suddenly whipped out and wrapped firmly around my waist, pulling me back. "Don't leave, Carrie," Troy pleaded. "I can't do this alone." The rope around my waist squeezed uncomfortably, and I lost my mind for a second. I didn't have anything to cut it away and was getting scared. I took a second to calm myself before speaking again. "Okay, I'll stay. Just let me go grab the scissors, and I'll be back in a minute. I'll call off of work, and we'll try and sort this out." Troy's hair fell from my waist. He appeared mostly placated, but that appearance was betrayed when he used his hair to lift the overnight back out of my reach. "Promise?" "Of course," I said, smiling with trembling lips. He let me go. I went downstairs calmly, picked up the scissors, then my keys and my cell phone, and bolted out the front door. I heard Troy's yells even as I was starting my car. I screeched out of the driveway and took off without ever looking in the rearview mirror. I never stepped foot into that house again. I fled to my home state of Illinois, where my parents still resided. They took back their 35-year-old daughter with grace and love, which helped my mental state tremendously. I blocked Troy's number and deleted the voicemails I received from Dr. Brighton. After a couple of months of living at home, I had no idea what had become of Troy, and that was exactly how I preferred it. My wedding ring was banished to a safety deposit box and all but forgotten. Half a year after leaving, I had a good job again and rented my own apartment. I mostly avoided developing friendships or romantic interests. I didn't need the complication of others asking about my past personal life, dredging up old horrors. I did, however, adopt a very sweet and companionable mutt named Archer. We kept life simple, and sometimes the nightmare of Troy faded into the background of my memory, there, but not all-consuming. That all changed yesterday. I was rudely awoken at 3 a.m. by a cacophony consisting of my phone ringing and Archer barking like a rabid hound. Groggily, I sat up and picked up my cell. It was Dr. Brighton calling. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. "Carrie," the doctor said, his tone steady and serious. "I hope this message finds you well. I just wanted to let you know something. I went to visit Troy earlier today, and he wasn't at the house. He'd been threatening to find you for a while, but I didn't think it was physically possible for him to leave the house at this point. There was a briefer pause. Look, keep your head on a swivel, Carrie. He comes from a place of love, but, well, just be safe. He's changed quite a lot. Call me back if you need anything, and take care of yourself. The message ended and I put down the phone. First grabbing the scissors I always kept on the nightstand, I left the bedroom to go check on Archer. He was standing in the hallway. His little black and grey speckled body pointed directly at the front door. He was growling, low and long, with raised hackles. A mass of thin, dark tendrils was poking in through the cracks of the door frame, creeping over the door and across the hardwood as an alien mass. Archer snapped at it, but a few strands got hold of his front paw and began to drag him forward. He yelped, sliding on the floor as he tried to get away. "Don't you fucking touch my dog!" I screamed and lunged at the hair to hack at it with the scissors. Once freed, Archer ran behind me, whimpering. From somewhere far off, I thought I heard a yell, and I noticed something extremely disturbing from the clippings on the floor. They were leaking small amounts of what appeared to be blood. The hairs I'd cut curled and retreated back through the door like wounded creatures. I would like to say that I considered the pain I would cause the former love of my life before I cut any more, but that would be a lie. With a guttural cry, I began hacking relentlessly at the invading strands like a deranged barber and again heard distant sounds of anguish. The remaining hair disappeared quickly after my attack, and I was left staring at the mess of trimmings and red stains, shocked beyond reason. I stayed up, on the watch for any further intrusion, with Archer by my side the entire time. When day broke, I went to the police station to file a formal restraining order against Troy, of course, omitting the part about the supernatural control he had over his own hair. I think Archer and I will move again soon. It's probably a stalemate at this point, given that I now know that Troy's strength is also his weakness, but I'm not taking any chances. In the meantime, I've spent most of a paycheck on the sharpest shears I can find, and a whole shelf's worth of Naya. Troy, if by some chance you read this, I have one message for you. Find me again, and I won't hold back. I'm ready for you, you hairy bastard.